Alright, today I got a 6F35 and an Escape, which is the same exact transmission as the one that's in the Ford Fusion. And we're going to be doing a drain and fill on here. It's good to do this every 30,000 miles or so. And you may want to do it yourself in the driveway to save a little bit of money. And the reason why I say every 30,000 miles, as I said in the other video, is the filter inside of here, it's not changeable. It's part of the transmission. You have to split the case in half and change the transmission filter. So you want to avoid plugging it up and having drivability issues, shifting issues. So we're going to change the fluid in here every 30,000 miles. Also, Mercon LV seems to break down quite quick. So we want to definitely be changing it out every 30,000 miles, especially on the 6F35 on here. So whether you have a Fusion or an Escape like this, you're going to have some kind of underbody shield. It's going to be a bunch of 10mm bolts. Just follow it all the way around and get that underbody shield out of there. Now on the Escapes, you can simply take this one out right here, which is next to this cross beam, okay? And you can take out right here, it's 10mm, right? And if you want to be really lazy, instead of pulling this whole thing down, once you got to follow 10mm all the way around, right? You could simply go like that. I just bent it back, and I'll show you how that looks on there. And that way it drains out. Right, it's right here. It'll drain straight down and into your drain bucket, and it won't be no splashing or all over the place. Don't bypass the shield on here. That's an option also. And that's the way I'm going to do mine on my vehicle today. And I'll show you how to do this. Now I recommend a drain and fill with Mercon LV only, over taking it somewhere to get flushed. The reason why is those flush machines have these big old reservoirs on each side, new and used. Well, guess what? He could have just flushed a GM. He could have just flushed a Chrysler. He just could have flushed a Mercedes. Who knows what he just did? And then a little bit of that fluid, maybe a couple of quarts even, through the hoses and the tanks and the lines on there, is going to mix with your fluid. And you really want the specific additive package of the Mercon LV in these transmissions only, and not a bunch of mixture from everybody else. So I recommend drain and fill on these. So once you have the shield out of the way, there's a drain plug on here, and I'll show you that also. It's in the very bottom of the transmission. There's only one. You can't mess it up. And it's a 7/16. And once I get it off on here, I'll show you how it looks, where I'm draining it from. It's straight up here. You just break torque on it. And once you break torque on it, you can get your wrench out of the way. Bucket in place, everything out of the way, and then you just simply unscrew it on there. You can start draining it out of there. Now mine probably looks pretty clear on here. It's a nice red color, but I like to change mine out every 20,000 miles or so. I'm going to flip you around here so you can see what the heck I'm doing. And this is the way I have it on my Escape. You can simply fold that back and tuck it underneath there, the little underbody shield, without pulling any bolts off of there. Now, of course, it makes it a lot easier, and it'll definitely stay put if you take this one bolt out. So that ain't no big deal compared to all the rest of them. After that, that's the 7/16 plug I was talking about. Just let her drain out. And just give it plenty of time to drain out on there. Okay, so once the transmission has got to this point where it's just dripping every once in a while, we've drained just about everything out of it. When you start putting the plug back in there and torquing it down, put a little bit of thread sealer on the threads on there from like Permatex. They sell it, and put it back in. And then we're going to torque it down. The torque spec on here is 106 inch-pounds on here. So if you don't have a torque wrench, you can just snug it down, you'll feel it, and it'll get to the point where it just bottoms out. Just give it another 1/8 a turn maybe, and you'll be just fine on there. And then of course we can wipe off any excess sealant and trans fluid. Be all done, and we can start getting this cover back on there. Now what I recommend for the bolts that are going back into there that like to rust and break off, so I put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads on here. This is not a very important fastener as far as a suspension component or something like that, so we can put anti-seize on here and not worry about it. And It'll lubricate the threads and prevent any future corrosion on there. Okay, so once you get the bottom end all back together, your drain plug's back in, torque down, all your bolts are back in, we're back up top here, we're going to start filling the transmission up. Your dipstick's going to be right underneath your master cylinder, right in this area. And it's going to be a big yellow dipstick, so you really can't miss it, and it says trans fluid on it. Use only Mercon LV, wipe that off. And then it's best to have a transmission filler funnel, something like this, so you don't get no spillage. And then what you want to use, like I said, is definitely Mercon LV. You definitely want to use it as a special additive package matching the clutch packs friction material in this transmission. So we're going to start off at 4 quarts. You can safely put in 4 quarts of fluid in there. We're going to start it. It'll be safe to start at that point, and we can adjust from there. What you want to do is have the level to the max line of the hash marks when this thing is fully hot. And this one, on this particular vehicle, is definitely going to take 5 quarts. Put another quart in, and then we'll finish checking it on here. And 5 quarts on there brought it up to the 3/4 mark on the hash marks. So that's perfect. Put 5 quarts in there, go for a drive, and you'll find in the end it'll be up to the very top of the hash marks on there, full hot. That's where you want it to be. Now once you have that transmission fluid level right there towards the top of the hash marks, halfway to 3/4, go for a drive, get it nice and warm, check for leaks, come back and we'll check the level. You want it at the very top of the hash marks on there. It's very important. That's probably the second most important thing. The first being using Mercon LV from Motorcraft. That's very, very important. I cannot stress it enough. So yeah, make sure that that fluid level is at the top of the hash marks. That's very important to this transmission, the accurate fluid level on there when it's hot, and it affects it when it's cold also. There's been actual TSBs out for cold shift flares. They want you to reflash the PCM and then make sure that transmission's at the very max of the hash marks in there. So it's very important.